This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Let's take a look at what's making the top story today. Well, let's begin in Nigeria, where negotiators are still attempting to work on a strategy for the release of over 300 schoolboys. This comes as government forces clash with gunmen who took the children hostage, but the children's safety and possible safe return is what they are eagerly waiting for.
On Saturday, Nigerian forces, backed by police, launched a rescue mission. This came after security agencies located the gunmen's hideout in the Zango Paula forest in Katsina State. Nothing much came out of the mission. It was after this that the government agencies engaged diplomacy as a parallel approach to secure the release of over 300 boys who were abducted on Friday. The gunmen, who were armed with AK-47 rifles during the attack on government science school, are said to belong to a militia group called Bakura. But as this got underway, parents of the victims are hoping for the best as a dark cloud hangs over their lives.
We have shed so much tears. Our hearts are grieving and we don't even know what to do. We have gotten tired of talking. We are appealing to the government to help us. Governor Masawi to help. Allah to help us secure our children from the hands of these people.
I have 3 children in this school. The eldest managed to scale the fence and escaped. He used the mobile phone of a resident of the town and called me on my phone, telling me that there was trouble in the school and narrated to me what had happened the previous night and that he had not seen any of his younger siblings.
Boko Haram leader Abu Bakr Shekau has claimed that he ordered the mission, but locals are discrediting him, claiming that his statement is opportunistic and unfortunate.
Honestly, I don't trust the claim of Boko Haram. It is a lie because Shekau is used to making such lies just to confuse people. I don't trust that, and the situation is not what he said it is.
It was said Shekau ordered the abduction of the children. We don't know the hidden. Only God knows the truth. All the information we have is that there was an armed robbery in the school. Every time I came to visit my child, he would tell me armed robbers would come by the school but had never entered.
For Nigeria, the incident brings back sad memories of the January 2016 Chibok girls' kidnappings by Boko Haram. Only that this time round, the number of victims is slightly higher, the gender different, with the possible identity of the group yet to be established. Mahemutwa, CGTN.
Well, let's get more on this. On the phone with us is Sadiq Bindawa, a reporter at Katsina Post. Sadiq, thank you so much for joining us. What is the latest on the abduction of the schoolboys in Katsina?
Thank you very much. There was an audio message from a man identifying himself as the leader of Boko Haram, claiming the responsibility for the abduction, which had led to the growing concern, trauma, and fear among parents of those school children. Some parents doubt the authenticity of the audio, even though there was no clear evidence whether Boko Haram is telling the truth or a kind of propaganda as usual. No video footage as they did to Chibok girls. In addition, there was no immediate comment by the Nigerian authorities with regard to the issue. On Monday, the governor of Katsina State on his Twitter handle said the abductors have made contact with the government. The governor gave assurance of steady progress to bring them out unharmed. The same day, the Nigerian army said it had located the hideout of the government and that a military operation is underway. And yesterday, luckily enough, men of the Nigerian Police Intelligence Response Team popularly known IRT, who are well known in clamping the activities of kidnappers, are relocated to Kankara town in continuation of the rescue operation. Although still there are conflicting reports on the exact figures of the missing students, the government authorities did not comment and did not issue any formal statement with regard to the claim made by the Boko Haram leader, as the searching for the children is still intensified.
Thank you so much for that, Sadiq Bendawa. He's a reporter at Katsina Post. Well, a new government-appointed provisional administration for Ethiopia's Tigray region is urging local government workers to return. This is after the TPLF leadership in charge of the Tigray region fled following war against the Ethiopian National Defense Forces. Here's CGTN's Giram Chala with more.
The Tigray Regional State Provisional Leadership has been busy forming temporary town administrations in different parts. And on Sunday at the regional state capital, Mekelle, the newly appointed administration has started working officially. It has called on civil servants to return to their respective workplaces. On Sunday, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed visited Mekelle city for a few hours and held talks with army commanders and members of the Tigray Provisional Administration. The Prime Minister said the next crucial task will be rebuilding and rehabilitating Tigray. That is alongside the army's work of hunting down the TPLF leadership that is still at large to bring them to justice. Thousands of refugees, however, still remain in Sudan camps where they need support. The Ethiopian government says it will bring back its citizens from Sudan and rehabilitate them in just a few weeks' time. Gurum Chala, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
People with Down syndrome in most parts of Africa face stigma, isolation, and poor health care. It's one of the most misunderstood disabilities in the developing world. In Ethiopia, one family has moved to clear such misperceptions by helping launch the country's first foundation to support families with persons having the conditions. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi reports from Addis Ababa.
Deborah was born in 2008 with Down syndrome. Her parents say giving her specialized care was costly, triggering a sense of despair.
When we took Deborah, she passed through surgery 2 times, and she stayed in ICU for 6 months by oxygen and others. It is very difficult for the family, for the mother, especially for mother, very difficult. After that, they have to have therapy. There is no therapy here, but need strong support. It's very difficult for the family.
Dr. Salaminesh Sige, who works at the Tikur Ambessa Hospital in Addis Ababa, says at least 250 cases of Down syndrome are seen at the hospital every month.
Most of the time we find these children in the hospitals if they have associated impairments. For example, if they have associated cardiac abnormality, or if they cannot breathe, if they have any respiratory abnormality, then the parents are afraid of losing their child and they bring them to the hospital. Otherwise, for a child with Down syndrome but no other organ abnormalities, nobody is concerned about the intellectual disability.
So far, there has been a distinct lack of specialized care. The Deborah Foundation was set up by the family of Deborah, the girl who has Down syndrome. The organization, named after that girl, has inspired the government to look at ways of increasing support for people with the condition.
What we are planning in the long term from advocacy and awareness task force is, to create awareness among the societies and to bring these kids from where they are just hiding now in different parts of the community, to make them at forefront, so that we can use them as a productive society, like what others are doing or contributing into the society.
For now, it is training experts who will then offer care and formal education to children with Down syndrome once this education complex is completed in a year's time.
Once this is done, the school is going to house children both with Down syndrome, but also normally developing children. because here at Deborah we feel like it's really important to have an inclusive classroom so that children grow up feeling part of their community and feeling normal, because that's what they are.
The biggest task for the country, however, is to fight the stigma that families with children with Down syndrome often face. South Africa is one of the few countries in the continent with a clear strategy of handling Down syndrome. In many other parts of the continent, children with Down syndrome fail to get relevant medical care, partly because the condition, like many other mental disabilities, is associated with cultural beliefs like bad luck. Here in Ethiopia, Deborah's family hopes their story will inspire others to learn about Down syndrome and get rid of the stereotypes. Colette Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
The United Nations Security Council has called upon all foreign fighters and mercenaries to leave Libya. The Council President Ambassador Jerry Majela addressed the media from New York on Tuesday. He said there that a successful political process was necessary for Libya's peace and stability. Libya's warring factions, the Government of National Unity and Libya's National Army, had signed a ceasefire agreement back in October.
The members of the Security Council underlined the importance of credible and effective Libyan-led ceasefire monitoring mechanisms and look forward to a comprehensive report by the Secretary General on the proposal for effective ceasefire monitoring under the auspices of the United Nations. The members of the Security Council called for the withdrawal of all foreign fighters and mercenaries from Libya, in line with the ceasefire agreement reached by the Libyan parties on 23rd of October 2020. The commitments of the participants of the Berlin Conference and the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. And lastly, the members of the Security Council reaffirmed their commitment to the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity and national unity of Libya.
Meanwhile, the chief of the UN mission in South Sudan, David Shearer, has acknowledged political gains in the country despite COVID-19. He, however, noted that the peace agreement implementation had stagnated since it was signed in October of this year. He urged parties to pursue the peace process the Sudanese people deserve.
We urge the parties to take concrete steps to breathe fresh air into the process, above all, to compromise to achieve the peace dividends that their citizens deserve. Our integrated military and civilian teams are in place right now to deter violence and support reconciliation so communities can reach an agreement to peacefully coexist. We know that our presence has markedly de-escalated conflict, particularly where we can make contact with parties early. The South Sudan's government's refusal to enable the mission to access many areas during the year has hampered this work considerably. While those restrictions have eased over the past weeks, we will continue to monitor and report progress to you.
We'll shift our focus to Guinea now, where Alpha Condé has been sworn in for a third term in office. At the ceremony in Conakry, the capital, Condé promised to rule differently, specifically dealing with corruption among government officials. The 82-year-old earned the third term after bitterly contested polls in which dozens of people died. The Constitutional Court says Condé's term will officially start on the 21st of December.
I am the president of all Guineans and at the service of all Guineans. As we realize our common ideal, no one will be left out, no part of the country will be excluded, and every Guinean will have his place, because it is together that we will succeed in overcoming today's problems and face up to the challenges of tomorrow. I believe profoundly in the virtues of dialogue and consultation, and I have been convinced for a long time now that Guinea will be built with all the people of Guinea. But everyone must respect the law and banish talk and acts of violence in order to remain a society of freedom and responsibility. We promise to firmly fight against corruption and clientelism. We want to govern differently, as we have promised to do before the people, and that means working with the most vulnerable layers of the society. To govern differently means the ministers and high-ranking civil servants must be at the service of the people and not to themselves and to their families.
Let's take a look at news that's making headlines from outside the continent. In the U.S., Joe Biden has announced Pete Buttigieg as his nominee to lead the U.S. Transportation Department. The choice of his former Democratic rival for the presidency may reflect Biden's eagerness to heal divisions. But the gulf between Democrats and Republicans has been deepening for years, and for some, the post-election climate suggests the U.S. will be more divided than ever, despite Biden's pledge to unite the country. Owen Furclow has more.
President Donald Trump refuses to accept he lost the presidency to Joe Biden.
We're winning this election.
But some Republican lawmakers have acknowledged Biden's victory, even if they remain a minority. It's symptomatic of a deeply divided country.
Are you hearing me? Are you not? What's up?
And the president-elect wants to heal those divisions as he prepares to take office with COVID-19 surging.
We're at war with the virus, not with one another, not with each other.
But Trump is still inspiring supporters to claim the election was rigged, deepening the deepest political divisions on record. The Pew Research Center has been studying worsening political polarization here in the US since the 1990s. And in its latest survey conducted after the election, it found that just 21% of Americans think that relations between Democrats and Republicans will improve in the next year. 37% say they'll worsen, and 41% say they'll stay the same. Polarization has been partly blamed on the US election system and social media providing platforms for divisive content.
You're the press, you're the enemy of the people.
And if Biden wants unity, some left-wing Democrats are skeptical about bipartisanship, even if it helped lawmakers pass an emergency coronavirus stimulus package earlier this year, before Congress rejected a second program over all too familiar divisions. Even so, retiring Republican Senator Lamar Alexander received this tribute from the most senior Democrat in the Senate.
He's someone who's been always willing and insistent on reaching across the aisle.
And yet candidates contesting an unprecedented double Senate election runoff in the state of Georgia have been accused of rallying highly partisan supporters rather than trying to woo centrist voters, with Trump using the contest as a platform to make false statements.
They cheated and they rigged our presidential election.
But Republicans and Democrats can at least agree that polarization is getting worse. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.
Time now for us to take a short break and return. Egyptian authorities confirm second wave as cases surge. And senior citizens suffer mental and emotional effects in Tunisia.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg,
Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching news making headlines right here on Africa Live. Well, Egypt's health ministry says the country has officially entered the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. The nation is expecting the peak of infections to be reached by the end of January. Meanwhile, the North African nation is preparing to begin inoculating people after receiving its first batch of vaccines from China's Sinopharm. Adel Amrouhi has the details.
So far, Egypt has registered more than 122,000 COVID-19 cases. Since March, 105,000 patients have been cured. And by mid-December, the country has reported 511 new daily COVID-19 cases, the highest in over 4 months. Days after receiving a first batch of 50,000 Chinese Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccines, Cairo is launching an online platform for Egyptians interested in taking the vaccines to register for free.
We are the first African nation to participate in the human clinical trials and the first African nation to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. Together we can successfully pass through this, especially with the collaboration between the people of the world.
As the country officially enters the second wave of the pandemic, priority to get the vaccine will be given to medical staff. The health ministry, though, says that so far the second wave is witnessing much less severe symptoms of the disease. It is, however, feared that infections will pick up. Officials say the peak is expected by the end of January. The WHO says Egypt's registered coronavirus cases do not reflect actual figures, while the US CDC has assessed Egypt as being at level 4, which poses the highest infection risk.
In our country, we don't go for community surveillance. We don't go for mass testing in the community. We have a different method where only the people who sought the medical care at the Ministry of Health hospitals, they are recorded. So the Ministry of Health reflects in a very good way the number of cases in the community. But if there are people who are getting a mild disease or a moderate one and they prefer to be treated at home in the private sector, they didn't go for the PCR testing. So we will have a number that is unidentified for people who got the disease in the community and are cured.
Meanwhile, Egypt's government-owned vaccination arm, Vaxera, is preparing a production line to begin introducing locally produced COVID-19 vaccines. That is in collaboration with the UNE and China to add another hub for manufacturing Sinopharm's vaccine. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The COVID-19 pandemic is reported to have largely affected frontline healthcare workers, the elderly, the disabled, women and girls, as well as minorities. That's according to the UN's Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who says poverty and destruction of the environment have also helped spread the virus. And in Tunisia, health authorities there say the COVID-19 pandemic has particularly taken a mental and emotional toll on senior citizens. Aden Shiwashi reports.
The COVID-19 task force in the National Observatory for New and Emerging Diseases has urged Tunisian families to take care of elderly people who face a higher risk of contracting the coronavirus.
The most dynamic, active and healthy population must be careful in dealing with the elderly and vulnerable population by respecting social distancing and the prevention measures to avoid a surge in infections among them. The elderly people are physically and mentally fragile. Protecting senior citizens is the responsibility of the state and the society.
Neji Jlassi spends several hours a day on social media. This is how he's been connecting with the outside world during the general lockdown, as well as the self-imposed health confinement.
I'm terrified since the first wave of the coronavirus. I've not seen my 4 daughters and their children for several months because they think they could infect me with the deadly virus. It's hard to be away from one's family. Old people are fragile and isolated. I'm lucky to have my family, even if we can't meet face to face.
The 62-year-old retired civil servant says that social isolation and mobility restrictions have led to the boredom and loneliness.
Now I live with my wife and son. My son is always in his room to observe social distancing. We use hand sanitizers and face masks throughout the day. My wife looks disturbed when I cough and says that I'm coronavirus positive. It's mentally and psychologically disturbing and very boring. The situation is difficult.
According to a recent study by Tunisian researchers, social disconnection and loneliness were linked with depression and anxiety. In fact, health authorities have reported a rise in depression and anxiety symptoms among elderly people this year. According to the Ministry of Women, Family and the Elderly, 5 cases of coronavirus deaths were recorded in centers for the elderly and nursing homes during the second wave of the pandemic. Experts say the number of fatalities remains high among senior citizens. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Owners of Airbnb facilities in Uganda could cash in during the festive season as families and travelers look for cheaper and quieter places to get away. Such facilities are not picking up the pieces after a challenging period due to the pandemic. Leon Siyanga reports.
Welcome to David's Chic 2-bedroom apartment. Let me show you around.
Deborah Asikate is an Airbnb host in Uganda's capital, Kampala. Her 2-bedroom unit rents for $50 a night, and it was usually fully booked in the past. She believes it's her prime location that is most attractive to guests.
Majority of the guests are working people who come to do some work in Kampala, and they need a comfortable place to stay where they can have internet, they can access the city easily, and it is safe. And so that's the majority of the travelers. Holiday makers, maybe about 20-30%.
But the COVID-19 pandemic forced her to shut the door for a while. Suspension of travel into Uganda in March meant there were no short-stay travelers in need of a place to sleep.
Occupancy was at about 90% of the time, so it was really doing very well. And then COVID hit, and then the occupancy went to 0, and now it's at around less than 5%.
Uganda has more than 100 Airbnb hosts across the country. For many, it's an extra source of income. But with the demand for more cost-effective accommodation now on the rise, many more apartments are expected to list, and that is increasing the competition with traditional hotels. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, Uganda has over 6,000 registered accommodation facilities. While some are slowly getting back to business, new accommodation platforms like Airbnb are keeping hoteliers worried.
We are going to have to be forced to look at many different ways because everybody now chooses to go Airbnb. When you want to travel abroad, you're looking at Airbnb. It's cheaper, it's many times even safer, and it also offers you more than just feeling a guest. You become part of the community, which is more bang for your buck.
And for the short-stay facilities, there is hope of recovery with the festive season knocking.
It will certainly get better with a number of people traveling more, but also a number of people within the city as well wanting to. I've had a few families come and stay for the weekend, a wife, husband and their child. They just come and stay here for 2 or 3 nights, and they're like, we just needed to unwind away from home.
December is likely to be a good month for Deborah. She is already tidying up for the next guests, whom she says will be staying well into the next year. Leon Sanyanga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
The Chinese medical team has handed over a donation of medical equipment to Zimbabwe's largest referral hospital. The donation from Health Commission of China is aimed at promoting the global fight against COVID-19. The recipient is the Parire Nyatwa group of hospitals and will help in ramping up its disease preparedness and control capacity. The captain of the 18th batch of the Chinese medical team in Zimbabwe, Luo Weiqiang, said that providing support to Zimbabwe in the time of COVID-19 was a top priority for China.
The friendship between China and Zimbabwe has started since the struggle for independence and has remained unchanged. Providing support to Zimbabwe in the time of COVID-19 should be a top priority of China. Today, the National Health Commission of the People's Republic of China donated this batch of medical equipment to Parire Nyatwa Hospital. It is another concrete step to enhance our cooperation. Let's make concerted efforts to protect the life and health of people in Zimbabwe. Let's work together to build a global community of health for all.
Well, let's not take a short break and return your business news. Here's what's coming up. Nigeria predicts recession in first quarter of 2021. And South Africa's embattled carrier announces new board.
definitely out of my depth, but at the same time, it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
It's time now for your business news. Nigeria is currently in its second economic recession in 4 years, but authorities believe this will be short-lived. Both the country's finance minister and governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria project that the country could exit recession by the first quarter of 2021. They've also forecasted a positive GDP growth in 2021. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmos with more on that story.
Nigeria's second quarter contraction, which caused the economy to slip into recession, was widely expected, but at just minus 3.62%, the scale of the contraction was quite surprising. Many had projected a much steeper contraction, but the country's fiscal and monetary authorities say the lower than expected decline is largely a result of the huge funding interventions they made to cushion the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on households and businesses.
With sustained implementation of our intervention measures, we do expect that the Nigerian economy could emerge from the recession by the first quarter of 2021. We also expect that growth in 2021 will attain 2.0%. However, downside risks remain, as restoration of full economic activities, particularly in service-related sectors, remain uncertain until a COVID vaccine is produced and made available to millions of people across the world.
The Nigerian government rolled out its economic sustainability plan back in June this year to tackle the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. The plan provides for a $5 billion stimulus package targeted at job creation, households and businesses. The central bank has so far been an important driver of the initiative, providing unprecedented funding support to various sectors of the economy.
We have seen that this has been quite impactful, particularly the targeted credit facility, which is meant for household and SMEs, because what we saw during this period is that it has helped to boost consumption spending for our SMEs. And if you know or recall that consumption constitutes over almost 70% of output, you will know that this has been very, very impactful in moderating the impact of the COVID-19 on productivity and output and GDP in our country.
The government is still coming up with more initiative and literally putting more money in the hands of the people with the hope of turning things around for the economy.
So I think the steps are the things are in the right direction, but these policies need to be complemented with other policies, just as the CGTN governor said. We need to complement it with the fiscal policies. We need to address the issue of the structural issues. We need to address the issue at the ports. We also need to address the issue of logistics and all of that. So there has to be complementary policies on the fiscal side to support what is happening on the monetary side. And just as I said, we need to address the issue of the foreign exchange market.
One other good thing for Nigeria is that oil prices are gradually picking up, and that could help shore up the country's reserve and keep its currency stable. And with COVID-19 vaccine now being approved for use, some bit of normalcy may begin to return to the global economy. That, of course, would further boost the local economy here and possibly get the country off the recession as quickly as officials are predicting. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Embattled Airlines South African Airways has a new board in place. The airline is currently under business rescue and is desperately looking for an equity partner. From Johannesburg, here is CGTN's Sumitra Naidu.
6 non-executive directors have been appointed to a new board at South African Airways. It's an important milestone for the airline that was placed into business rescue on the 6th of December 2019, just over a year ago.
This is a group of individuals that have accepted this challenge of managing an airline, hopingly that after it's been restructured after the business rescue process, it will be strategic equity partner who can come in and provide a leadership team and also introduce their own technical, financial, operational expertise into the business.
Many are placing their hopes of good governance and independence with this new board. SAA has been riddled with corruption scandals and government interference for decades.
If DPE claims that they're genuine about cleaning up SAA, no member of the current SAA board should exist on this new interim board. Shouldn't be the case. Secondly, the fact that no one from Labour has been appointed, the fact that no member of civil society has been appointed, means that as far as we're concerned, we're not holding our breath. We've been through this before.
But the Department of Public Enterprises believes the mismanagement and graft at the airline is a thing of the past, and an interim board will have full oversight of the business rescue process.
This is a combination of expertise and professionals within the academic, financial, legal, and with a lot of aviation experience, with deep knowledge of the global aviation and transport in the world. So it will give the airline a new perspective that has been sorely missing at that level.
Continuity may be a far stretch though, as this is the 6th board in 11 years. Philip Saunders was also appointed as interim head in July and is the 11th CEO in 11 years. SAA counted over $1 billion in losses over the last 3 years and has failed to record a profit in over a decade. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Earnings for Tanzania's cashew nut growers are expected to fall this year due to crop disease and the reports of effects of climate change. Reports from the country's cashew nut board show that nut production will be short of the target by over 20% this year following a drop in yields. Earlier projections targeted production of at least 278,000 tons for the 2020-2021 harvest season, but board officials say this may not be reached. CGTN's Daniel Kijo has more.
Cashew nuts are one of Tanzania's key cash crops, and the country is among the top traditional cashew nut producing countries in the world. About 250,000 farmers in Lindi, Mtwara, Ruvuma, and Coast Region depend on cashew nut farming for their livelihood. But crop diseases and weather changes in plantations in Tanzania's cashew production areas have affected output over the last few years. The Cashew Nut Board of Tanzania reports show in 2018, Tanzania earned about $575 million for exporting about 313,000 tons of cashew, before declining to 225,000 tons in the next season, 2018-2019. Prior to the start of the 2020-2021 season, the government had forecast that its production would rise. However, revised projections show that the country's production in the coming season will be short of the target by 55,000 tons, going down 20%. With the new projections, cashew nut production is expected to be less by over 10,000 tons compared to the previous season's volumes. So far, the country has produced cashew nuts worth around $163.8 million, sold by 6 cooperative units in the 4 major growing regions of Mtwara, Lindi, Ruvuma, and the Coast Region. About 90% of the country's raw cashew nut is exported to India, with a small portion, which is less than 10%, is processed internally. However, the government has established a special fund to enable farmers to acquire inputs and also to increase the number of cashew nut extension offices in order to revive the sector. It is also moving to attract global buyers by trading online via the Tanzania Mercantile Exchange System. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
After years of incremental anti-competition lawsuits, Europe has laid out an aggressive new strategy to take on big tech and overhaul the rules of the internet. The European Commission on Tuesday unveiled a Digital Services Act and Digital Markets Act to address anti-competitive behavior and illegal content. Tony Waterman reports.
Brussels believes tech giants have become too big to care, turning fat profits off European consumers, but largely unaccountable for the heaps of illegal behavior on their platforms. The European Commission now wants to rein them in with a sweeping new set of rules aimed at curbing hate speech, the sale of illegal or counterfeit goods, and unfair competitive practices.
The two proposals, they serve one purpose: to make sure that we, as users, as customers, businesses, have access to a wide choice of safe products and services online, just as well as we do in the physical world.
The Digital Services Act puts the onus on all firms to police illegal activity on their platforms. Failure to comply or remove it fast enough could result in fines up to 6% of global turnover, billions of dollars for the likes of Google and Amazon. The second proposal, the Digital Markets Act, targets unfair competition among large gatekeeper platforms like Facebook, Google, and Apple, banning them from favoring their own services and products and from using data gathered from rivals selling on their platforms.
This is not two acts where we will say, oh, this company is too big, we will propose a dismantlement. Not here, not on this side of the ocean. This is, again, not against, it is for. It is for our European citizens, it is for our democracy, it is for fair competition, it's not against anybody.
But with gatekeepers defined as companies with more than 45 million users across Europe, it's mostly Silicon Valley heavyweights that will meet the criteria. Some expressed opposition to the rules as they were being drafted, saying they could make it difficult to provide products and services to small businesses and customers. Lobbyists flooded Brussels, trying to influence the final outcome. And on Tuesday, the Commission said stakeholders were part of the discussions.
We welcome this first step, but it comes to now the European Union to make sure in the next months that the regulation actually has teeth that really holds the platforms accountable for the spread of disinformation online.
The proposals are the first overhaul of the bloc's internet rules in 2 decades, long overdue for many. But it could be quite a while before anything really changes. This plan faces years of consultation, amendments, ratification, and adoption, meaning the final legislation is not expected until 2023 at the earliest. Tony Waterman, CGTN, Brussels.
Let's now take a short break. When we return, how Ardmore Studios in South Africa is shaping and transforming lives.
The year 2020. It was a year like none before, shaped by the COVID-19 pandemic. Africa, seemingly spared the worst of it, still took a huge hit with unprecedented disruptions to healthcare, the social and economic order. Climate change also took its toll on Africa. Shifts in temperature affected food productivity and availability of water and the overall security of the African people. The continent saw major political changes too. Several countries held successful elections despite the pandemic, while others made strides towards lasting peace. This was 2020, a year unique in so many ways. CGTN will highlight some of the top stories we covered as the year unfolded.
Invasion in several parts of the country.
For 34 years, Ardmore Studios has crafted original ceramics that have provided incomes to feed many families in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal. Trained by Ardmore's founder, Fair Halstead, 80 painters and sculptors transform African art into ornamental pieces. Items have been sold by Christie's and Sotheby's. Despite its international success, it has remained true to its roots, trained and developed local artists, as well as caring for a community hit hard by HIV and AIDS. Today, this studio is an institution in South Africa and continues to shape and change people's lives.
I was angry. I wanted to teach people, and I thought, well, if I can't teach privileged whites, I'm going to help people who don't have opportunity. My name is Faye Halstead. I grew up in Zimbabwe, and I came to study fine arts in South Africa. and I was lecturing. I majored in painting and started working in ceramics, and I was lecturing in Durban, and I lost my job. I was angry. I wanted to teach people, and I thought, well, if I can't teach privileged whites, I'm going to help people who don't have opportunity. And I started working with Bonnie and Chalanchali, our maid's daughter. It's been a fairy tale story. It's include about 80 people, and we live here at Caversham in KwaZulu-Natal. I didn't choose to make Ardmore so detailed and intricate. What we did by working with the Zucha is they have always created the most exquisite craft. This beautiful, colorful brand of Ardmore, I think what it is that this continent and this country is so rich in so much elegance, sophistication. It is inspiration for artists. Picasso, so many artists have been to Africa to get inspired. It's the rawness of it. And what we've created here for Ardmore is the elegance, the color, the celebration of life. And for me, that is what has been Ardmore's success. Through the years, just grown and grown and grown, and we've developed the most amazing work. I don't think there's it in the world. And to see people start at Ardmore, I say, remember this day. They come, they've lost their parents from HIV, many of them have. We got hit hard with HIV with the artists in 1985 was one of our first artists died, and we worked really hard with them, but in those days nobody would talk about it. So many of my artists, we lost at least 40 wonderful, wonderful artists, including Bonnie. It was very painful to lose these artists at the time, and I took a very positive approach. I made a hospital at the studio, and I kept artists with me close. We nursed them. Now, since 2010, most of the artists are on antiretrovirals, and they've lived very well with being HIV positive, and we haven't lost one artist. My children grew up with Ardmore. My two daughters are very, very creative. They studied fine art, also in Pietermaritzburg University, and my son studied business. When he'd finished school, I said, you know, I can't really leave you much, but we could have fun starting a new business. And why don't we take these fabulous ceramics and turn them into fabric? And we started that business in about 10 years ago now. And it's been such a fun journey working with the kids, and my daughters are the designers. And in fact, in 2013, we were discovered by Hermès, the French wonderful luxury brand in Paris, and Catherine has designed the most exquisite scarves for them. And then also 2-3 years ago, we were discovered by Cole & Son in New York. Our work was discovered there, and we've produced the most fantastic and one of their most popular selling wallpaper designs that we did with them. And in fact, in 2021, we're going to launch this #2 collection. So that's very, very exciting. I think our worldwide success has come about because we've produced a new visual. It's a bit quirky. It's raw, it's naive, in a beautiful sense of life. This feeling of what we've achieved here, I cannot tell you what it feels like. I lie in bed at night and I go, sure, I've done something good, you know, something in my wildest dreams has happened, but it's come from hard work and dedication. What is my dream is to continue to just see the Ardmore studio and the artists and their children have continuity, and to put steps and measures in place that they become self-reliant on me. So my visual is for me to be able to step back and to watch my teachings come out.